Her very first interview since her maternity leave. We're glad to have her back. She has a new baby girl. Our briefing with White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Want to talk about the baby or the algae? Where would you like to start?
Well, the baby is certainly much more enjoyable to talk about, Sean, but the algae is obviously the news of the day, and it is completely ridiculous. It's unbelievable to see these people, these deranged leftists, in algae costumes with Team Algae on their backs. What does that even mean? Only the Democrats could hate beautifying our nation's capital and making it a symbol of pride again. But this is what the American people elected President Trump to do. He made this promise to them on the campaign trail that he was going to make our nation's capital both safe and beautiful again, and it is a promise that he has kept. With respect to safety, violent crime has plummeted. The city is the safest it's been in generations. Murders are down 40%. And with respect to the beautification of the city, I live here working, of course, at the White House, and you can see it with your own eyes as you travel throughout the city. The homeless encampments are gone. You see the parks are cleaned up. The president has restored more than 120 monuments across the city. The National Park Service has used more than 150 tons of material to clean up the potholes that everybody hates. And I don't know about you and your audience, but this is the type of work that I want to see our tax dollars going towards, making our nation's capital and our nation's cities safe and beautiful again for not just tourists, but the residents who live here. This is a very real problem in the district. It has been for a while. President Trump is solving it. Leave it to the deranged Democrats to be against that.
All right, Karoline, any more details on the 5 people that have been arrested regarding vandalism here?
The vandalism is very real, despite what Tim Walz wants to say. It's an imaginary problem. No, it is not. It's a very real problem. In fact, I spoke with the National Park Service just before joining the show. They now have 17 police reports that have been filed in just the matter of a few days. There's actually been 6 arrests at the Reflecting Pool, where, again, these deranged individuals, many of them longtime donors to the Democrat Party, to Barack Obama, to Act Blue, that have been vandalizing and desecrating our federal monument, one of the most beautiful monuments in the world, the Reflecting Pool. And that's why President Trump is not going to stop with this effort. We're going to not only hold those people accountable, but we're going to fix the pool, continue to make it beautiful from this despicable vandalism just in time to celebrate our nation's 250th birthday next week.
Okay, so I'm arguing that we are in uncharted waters in terms of a midterm election. What I mean by that is, you know, El Sayed out there campaigning with Hassan Piker, who blamed America for 9/11. Then you have the whole Mr. Nazi tattoo, Graham Plattner. Then you have six-gender, God is non-binary Tallarico. Then you've got Bernie Sanders, you got Pocahontas, you got Mamdani, you got AOC, you got the squad. And but for John Fetterman, not one Democrat will dare take on the radicalism that has never existed in this current form in that party. Now, does the president, has he spoken about what he plans to do in terms of heading into these uncharted midterm elections coming up in November?
It's very clear what President Trump stands for because he's delivered on it. Secure borders, deporting the worst of the worst, violent, illegal alien murderers and rapists from our country, cutting taxes, which he did nearly 1 year ago. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of his historic One Big Beautiful Bill, the largest tax cut for working families and middle-class Americans in our nation's history. He'll be in Pennsylvania tomorrow, meeting with American workers who have been helped by his no tax on overtime that he promised and he signed into law, and his effective tariff policies that have brought jobs back to the United States, like at the Mack Truck facility where he will be touring tomorrow in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. President Trump made promises to make America safer and more affordable. He is delivering on those promises, and just imagine what the Democrats would do if given the chance at power again. Just remember what they did to our country in 4 years of Joe Biden's tenure. They completely destroyed it with wide open borders. They want to raise your taxes taxes. They want to raise inflation back to record highs. President Trump is recovering our economy from those detrimental days under President Biden. That's why Republicans need to retain control of this city so that President Trump can continue to have the support he needs to continue to govern for 2.5 years. Otherwise, Democrats are going to try to block and tackle. They'll be focused on ridiculous, ludicrous impeachment hearings and crazy stuff that don't serve the American public, just like they did in his first term when they were given the keys back to Capitol Hill. We can't let it happen.
Let me ask one Iran question, because I've talked to the president privately. I've talked to him in interviews. He's made this statement publicly many times that he's in no rush as it relates to Iran. So my question is, if the Iranians, if it's impossible for them for the foreseeable future, 5, 10 years away, to ever reconstitute their nuclear program, I don't see that the president needs to be in a rush. Last time I checked today, the price of a barrel of oil was $73. At one point, it was 126. And the president does have to walk and chew gum and manage the economy and keep the world safe and secure at the same time. So I think I understand what he's saying when he says time is on our side.
Yes, absolutely, Sean. And don't forget that President Trump has been implementing good economic policy for the year and a half he's been in office. He's slashing regulation. He's cutting taxes. He is unleashing American energy dominance, which did bring down the gas and oil prices in this country. Of course, he's been upfront with the American people and recognizing what's going on with Iran has been a short, temporary disruption. But, however, as the Memorandum of Understanding was recently signed, we have seen oil prices fall, just as President Trump said that they would, and they will. They will fall back to the levels they were before Iran began. But it's very important to our nation, our national security, and the American people that the rogue Iranian regime was never allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon. President Trump has been very clear about that for decades. Anyone who voted for him understands that. And so now we're in this 60-day negotiating period at the direction of the president, headed up by the vice president, Special Envoy Witkoff, Jared Kushner. Trust in them. This is a team who made the impossible possible with respect to bringing the hostages home from Gaza. Nobody thought that could happen. It happened under the president, the vice president, and the national security team's leadership. So they'll continue to negotiate, ensure that we have a final deal that meets the needs of the American people in our country. President Trump, I know, will never sign on to a deal that does not serve this country and our national security interests. He is always looking out for America first.
And the vice president mentioned the IAEA, but the president's been very clear that American eyes will need to be on any project to either remove the dust, the nuclear dust, or degrade it. Is that stand as well?
That's right. It is ludicrous to assume that President Trump would ever sign on to a deal that compares in any way, shape, or form to the disastrous JCPOA that Barack Hussein Obama signed on to. They gave the Iranian regime pallets of cash. This deal is going to ensure that it benefits not just America's national security interests, but the American people as well. President Trump will make sure of it.
And not one American tax dollar, and they only get money or have the ability to get their money back if they do X, Y, and Z. Congratulations.
Action.
Welcome back.
That's right.
All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews, the debates you won't get anywhere else. Like and subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday.